Spider-Man. So the finale to X-Men 97 is out, and I believe it's nothing short of perfection. This series has just been a complete win for Marvel Studios, and I've loved every single moment from this series. We're going to break down this finale because so much happens, and it just makes me so happy. Taking the first big introduction of the X-Men into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, even though that this is a separate universe, is just so awesome because people seem to be loving it so much that the hype for X-Men, not only X-Men movies coming out soon with the reboot in the MCU, but also X-Men comics and things of that nature, it's just wild. Before we get started, if you guys could leave a comment down below with what your favorite moment from X-Men 97's finale was. I read every single one. I most likely will respond. And lastly, we're on the road to 1,500 subs, so if you guys could hit that button, it would mean the world to me. It's free. And now let's get into the breakdown of this incredible finale. We start this episode off inside the mind of Magneto, where we have Charles speaking to Magneto's past self. We see the moment in history where they reveal their mutant powers to each other, and this is because Charles is currently inside the mind of Magneto after the end of last week's episode. We get some deep conversations with Magneto and Charles, going into each other's minds, finding out where they went wrong, why they've been doing this whole song and dance for so long. And Charles is really trying to bring Eric back after what he did to Wolverine in last week's episode. The visuals of this happening look absolutely incredible, and we get some amazing cameos. We see Captain America and Iron Man, as well as Daredevil, yes, the man without fear himself. And we also see Dr. Stephen Strange performing surgery, as well as Prince T'Chaka, Black Panther. And we now see that Bastion has evolved into his next form with Mr. Sinister and Cable. We believe Jean Grey to be dead after last week's episode, but she actually resurrects herself in the form of the Phoenix, which Jean Grey has resurrected herself many times with the Phoenix Force. It was very cool to see the Phoenix Force here tackle Mr. Sinister and Bastion. She comes to the rescue of her son by destroying Mr. Sinister and reverting him back to his very old age. We also get cameos from Omega Red, Alpha Flight, as well as Cloak and Dagger. We also see other characters like Psylocke. While the Phoenix Force was enough to stop Mr. Sinister, Bastion actually rips the arm off of Cable and uses it for another set of armor. He looks like Archangel here, and it's really cool seeing how he took the creation of Mr. Sinister and brought it to his own advantage. We then get another scene between Magneto and Charles, where Charles is desperately trying to break through to Eric, who has now lost all of his memories, and Charles is trying to get him to regain them, but at the same time sway him to be a good person again. I really loved the symbolism of the waves in the water being a symbol of Magneto's tortured past, and we also get very brief glimpses of Magneto's family, Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, and Polaris. So who knows, we might actually see them next season, and there's actually hints towards that at the end of this episode. Bastion plans to eradicate Earth by using Asteroid M to crash into the planet. A few X-Men go to Asteroid M to stop Bastion, and Rogue makes the first introduction by saying his name was Gambit, remember it. Such a great line, I'm glad they brought it back. They get into a massive fight, and we see Sunspot finally embracing all of his powers and becoming this character. Meanwhile, the president has to decide whether to launch these missiles or not that will destroy Asteroid M and all the X-Men. A very cool Easter egg is spotted here while the president is flipping through Magneto's papers, going through the Magneto protocol. We see another names for Magneto are Ian and Michael, of course referencing Ian McKellen and Michael Fassbender, who played Magneto in live action. Back with Magneto and Charles inside the mind of Magneto, we see the water levels rising, and the moments between them two are fantastic. You can sense this real brotherly connection, and we didn't get any of this season because Charles was gone, and when Charles came back, Magneto was gone, so getting this now at the very end is so great. Because for some people who've never seen the original series or any of the X-Men movies, the relationship between Charles and Magneto is one of the greatest. The president decides to launch the missiles at Asteroid M, and the mutants have to fend for themselves, fighting Bastion. The team does a great number on him, but it's not enough until a Sentinel drops in and stomps on him. This is actually a Trojan horse because inside of the Sentinel, we have Beast and Forge. However, this is not enough to stop Bastion, and Cyclops has to make the hero play here, realizing they're not going to defeat him. That's going to make them lose their purposes as X-Men. They have to reach a hand out to him. Scott becomes the real leader here, and it's so great to see him reach his hand out to Bastion after all of the damage he's caused, realizing that this guy is just damaged. But when this is happening, the core of Asteroid M actually gets destroyed, and the asteroid starts plummeting to Earth because the rockets could not stop it. The X-Men have to make a sacrifice play here. They have to give up their own lives so others can live by destroying the asteroid by putting all of their powers together. We get a great moment between Cable, his mother and father, Cyclops, and Jean Grey with a holographic scene having Scott say to Cable, "I'm sorry for what happened and I love you, son." It was very touching considering Cable never got any of these moments with his parents. This moment seems to be an Armageddon moment, an apocalypse, no pun intended, for Earth. This asteroid is coming down at a speed that will destroy the entire planet, and the X-Men have to work together to stop it. We see the people on Earth completely full of fear, and we actually see Peter Parker and Mary Jane Watson from the 90s animated Spider-Man show. This was incredible because we find out that Mary Jane was found. We leave the 90s Spider-Man cartoon off, not knowing what happens to Mary Jane, and I'm really just hoping for a 90s Spider-Man revival. Luckily, Charles is able to wake up Magneto and convince him to do the right thing, so when he wakes up, he destroys Asteroid M with all of the X-Men on it. And at this point, we think all of the X-Men are gone except for the ones on Earth. After this, we get a 6-month time jump post Asteroid M where Forge is looking for all of the X-Men who are now presumed dead. On this poster, we see several X-Men who are presumed dead that Forge is still looking for, but we also see some X-Men that could form a new team. More importantly, we see the pictures of Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver who are off-world at the moment. What this means, I have no idea, but I'm very excited to see them in the future. Bishop finally returns and tells Forge that this isn't the first time the X-Men have been presumed dead and come back, meaning all of our heroes are still alive. It's a question of where they are and when they are. We see that Rogue and some of the other mutants have been transported back to Egypt in 3000 BC, while others have been transported to the future. They're fighting these Egyptians, and there's this very interesting character that they seem to be protecting. Meanwhile, in the future, we see Scott and Jean reunite with their son, but it's the future version that was sent by Bishop in the future, so he's technically still a kid. What they're going to do with this, I have no idea. It's completely insane. Maybe it's based off of comic run, but after this show, I'm going to read so many X-Men comics. Meanwhile, back in Egypt, we see Rogue, Charles, Beast, and Magneto find out that this person that the Egyptians are attacking is in fact a young Apocalypse, which Apocalypse is a huge X-Men villain, and it looks like they're going to be bringing him back for the next season. After this, the episode ends, and we actually do get a post-credit scene of Apocalypse from the present day visiting Genosha and picking up a card that was left behind by Gambit. He holds one of Gambit's cards while speaking of death, leading us to believe that Gambit will be resurrected by Apocalypse and be one of the 4 horsemen. This is just so crazy. I can't believe they're doing this, and the fact that we have this show and it's so good and it ended so strongly while setting up a second season is hard to believe. This show has been trending #1 worldwide all day, and for good reason. The writing, the characters, the visuals, everything about this show has been top tier, and I am so happy that it just exists. I have friends watching this show and never have seen anything with the X-Men before, and they're loving this show so much, wanting to dive into other things after it, because these characters have such a rich history, and if you've only watched this show, you have so much to catch up on. You don't just have to wait till next year for the next season to come out. Overall, this might be one of my favorite Marvel TV shows. I think it's right up there with Loki season 2 and 1, and man, what an ending. Most importantly, this just gets me so excited for the X-Men to be brought into live action within the MCU. I hope they do kind of an Avengers versus X-Men thing, but we can talk about that more in a different video. Lastly, guys, leave your comments down below about everything I missed talking about in this episode. I know there were so many Easter eggs, cameos, references, and details, so leave your comments. I read all of them. I most likely will respond, and I will see you all very, very soon.